In Matthew 2, it says the Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, and they were seeking to worship the King of the Jews. But who were these men? The Magi, often called wise men, were a priestly line from among the Medes, similar to really how the Levites were the priestly line in Israel. They were very skilled in astronomy and astrology, as well as other sorcery. Hence the reason the word magic is derived from the word Magi. We see the Magi in the Babylonian Empire when they show up in the book of Daniel. And during Daniel's time, the Magi were acquainted with the Hebrew people. And it is likely they were made aware of the Hebrew prophetic plan for this one who was to come. They held high-ranking positions in which they were advisors to the king. This led them to being called the wise men. They held these high positions through the Babylonian Empire to the Medo-Persian and Greek empires, and were still in existence in the Roman Empire when Christ was born. Now, if you've heard of these wise men, you've likely heard that they brought gifts when they visited Jesus. In Matthew 2:11, it says, "Then opening their treasures, they present him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh." But what were the meaning of these gifts? Well, we see in the Old Testament several cases where subservient states would present these gifts to the overlord state. A lot of times, one nation would take over a smaller nation, or the smaller nation would become subservient to the greater nation to enjoy its protection. The subservient state would offer gifts or tributes to the superior states, and the frequent gifts that were offered were gold, frankincense, and myrrh. You see, the Magi's gifts were an indication that they recognize, though we have a king in our own country, this Jesus is the King of Kings. This also indicated they were subservient to him and they submitted to his authority. Matthew 2 also tells us that when the Magi saw the star in the east, they knew that the king had been born. And when they made the journey to Bethlehem and saw the newborn king, they worshiped him and presented him with kingly gifts, symbolizing that he was indeed the King of Kings, brought here to save.